This is the fourth in our summer series of webinars, and it's the second, that's why it's part 2, of a number of 3 webinars that discuss customizing the FO plugin. Last time, we talked about an overall introduction to the FO plugin, the components that comprise the FO plugin, how the plugin processes files, intermediate files that are generated, some basic ideas of attribute sets and templates that are used by the FO plugin. And in general, it was a pretty, and basic steps of how to customize the FO plugin. It was a pretty high-level overview, and the goal for today and tomorrow's sessions are to really make it practical. Talk about specific use cases, specific case studies that many of us have encountered, in which we actually, I'm going to show you a lot of examples of customizing the FO plugin, which hopefully will help us all as we move forward and need to make our own customizations. Now we got a lot of feedback last time about the lag, especially when I switch between applications. So I'm going to make an effort to slow down and to switch applications earlier. But I think I'd like to ask you, the audience, to do, especially if you're on the West Coast, is if you can give me a quick chat when you're ready with the next application, when you can see it on your screen. I think that would be helpful. And I also found a control here that shows me what the audience view is, so I'll see how accurate that is. If it is accurate, then I can also just watch my control and see if I can see what you see. Okay. So I think most of you guys have met me already, so we're going to skip this. I'll leave the screen up in case someone hasn't and wants to read it at some point. Who am I? Okay. Likewise, I think we're mostly familiar with Suite Solutions. We're a company that provides services and consulting for the whole spectrum of the content lifecycle, from information architecture all the way to customizing output and converting legacy documentation. So here's the official slide for that. And now we're going to move forward with our plan for today. So we have a 3-part plan for today. The first one is to discuss, it's really a review of the slides from last time, which were how to customize the FO plugin. The reason I put them in again is because last time we did a very simple method of customization, and now I want to use those same steps I outlined last time to do it in a more sophisticated, complex way. And since this is the building blocks of what everything else we're going to be doing tonight and tomorrow, I thought that it made sense to review it and go into more detail. Okay, the second step is customization units. Some questions and answers about customizing templates and customizing attribute sets, and some best practices. That's really more part of the overview still. And then we're going to jump in. I'd like to spend a good part of the time on this last bullet, customization case studies, where, as we mentioned in the summary of tonight, we're going to talk about customizing tables and lists and links and document body and the rendering engine. And those are going to be some real practical examples of how to customize with lots of code samples as well. Okay, so like I said, this should look familiar, I hope, these slides, but we're going to take it a step further. So we said there are 5 steps to customizing the FO plugin. Step number 1 is to choose a directory. Last time we did the first option. We put our customizations directly into the customization directory, and that's really where the FO plugin looks by default. You don't have to say anything special to it. As long as your customizations are there and you follow the other 4 steps, it will automatically appear, the processing will automatically know to look there and give us the changes that we made in the customization directory. And that's good, if you have basically one set of customizations and you don't need any special kind of organizational structure. However, we mentioned that the second option is to create our own customization directory, and the way we would do that is by copying the existing one, the customization directory, which is provided as a template, and renaming it to the name of our choice. And this is very nice because it allows us to put our customizations anywhere we want to not anywhere we want to, but many places in the file structure. It allows us to provide our own names for our customizations, and specifically the main benefit is that if we want to have a number of different sets of customizations, like let's say a user manual and a quick reference, or a packet guide and an instructor guide. So we can provide as many different customization directories as we want, side by side, just differentiate them by the name. And we'll see it's very easy when we're calling the PDF generation using a project build file. It's very easy just to send it a different name, and out will come a totally different set of output. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to create our own customization directory. Rather, I'll demonstrate the one I did earlier today. And the way I created it was by copying customization and renaming. And I'm going to, because of the lag problem, I'm going to read step 2, and then I'm going to switch off of this screen. Step 2 is to include changed templates. And there were, again, 2 options for this, and we did the simpler option last time. So option number 1, which is what we did, which is not what we did last time. So I'm going to go to the second one first. The second option, which is what we did last time and is the simpler one, is to paste whole changed templates directly into the custom XSL file, which is also provided by the toolkit. As a template, you have to take off the extension, and you can then use it. This is good for small sized customizations that aren't too complex and don't need to, and usually where there aren't too many lines of code. So you keep everything in one place, it's nice and neat, and that's where it is. However, when you're making lots of customizations, it's often very helpful to do the first option, which is to copy the relevant template files to this directory, and instead of including all the actual code in the custom file, to include just the file names. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. The advantages to this method is that it keeps it very organized, and it keeps it very much parallel to the existing out-of-the-box code structure. So if I know I'm making a change, let's say to Commons XSL, so I'll have a parallel file also called Commons XSL or Commons Custom, depending on your naming convention, and I'll know that all the templates in there originated in Commons XSL. And it helps me a lot when I want to compare and see what was changed and what wasn't changed. It's very helpful to have the file structure be the same. And likewise, the custom file is very, very organized because you can see exactly which files were changed. You can turn them on or off by commenting and uncommenting, and it keeps things organized. Okay, so now I'd like to demonstrate these 2 steps on my file system. I'm going to watch my audience view, but if you can also chat in when you see my file system, that would be helpful, at least for the beginning. So I'm going to go down to DITA-OT 151, which is the latest version of the toolkit and what we're using for our training. Okay, and I'm going into Demo FO, which is where the plugin directory is. And if you could someone tell me when you see it, and I'm highlighting the customization directory I created. So I think my audience view is lying because it says that you can see it, but, oh, I see. Now it says everyone can see it. Is that true that everyone can see my file system? Let's see. Now I can. Excellent. Okay, maybe this is accurate, which would be great because then you wouldn't have to tell me all the time. Okay, so as you can see, I hope, there's the out-of-the-box customization directory, which is where my arrow is. And it has out-of-the-box files in it that basically serves as a template for any customization directory we'd like to create. What I did was I copied this customization directory. Now it also already has some changes in it because that's what we used last time, but they're relatively minor. And I created a new customization directory, which I called, because I'm very creative, I called Customization July 6th for today. Okay, so that was step 1. Instead of using the out-of-the-box one, I'm creating my own with a meaningful name. Obviously, it could be more meaningful where I'm really making a specific type of output, but for my purposes, this was meaningful enough. Okay, good. That was step 1. Now step 2 is to put in my customized templates. So I'm going to go down to FOXSL, which is where the templates, customized templates live. Okay, it says that everyone can see it, so please tell me if you can't. And I'm going to pull out my custom, actually before I do that, I'm going to try to conserve screen viewing here. You can see here what I did earlier. So instead of just having the custom XSL file, which I created by copying custom XSL a rig and renaming it to custom XSL, I also included 2 custom files that I changed for tonight's webinar. One is commons custom.xsl and one is tables 1.0 custom.xsl. I added the custom appendix to make it easier for us to see which were the customized versions and which were the regular versions. I could have called them commons XSL and tables 1.0 XSL. But what I'm going to show you right now is that the custom file doesn't have any code in it. What it has instead is include statements. All it does is it includes commons custom and tables custom. That's demonstrating what I told you on that second step. Instead of including all the code, we're going to have the code in separate files and include those files in custom. Now I'll show you what I mean. We're switching applications, so please tell me when you can see the next application. I can't see it yet, so I'm sure you can't either. Okay. I see it. Thank you. Thank you guys very much for the feedback. You should not only be able to see the application, but also see the text. Not yet. I think this audience view is pretty good. So what I might do, if it proves to be accurate, is stop asking you questions and rely on it, and then please tell me if for some reason it's not being accurate. Because right now I see Visual Web Developer, but not my code yet. Okay, now I can see my code. Does that mean you can all see it? Great. Good, so I think we have made technical progress here. Okay, so these are actually commented out because I wanted to demonstrate this step by step with our case studies. But you can see all I have here is 2 lines. I'll show you what it would look like if it weren't commented out. Okay, so you can see, for example, I uncommented. The first line just says XSL : include href equals commons custom XSL. I don't need to include a directory path because it's a relative path and they're sitting in the same directory as we saw earlier. And now what we're going to do in the course of this evening when we talk about the different case studies is we'll open up commons custom and I'll show you what's in there. But for our overview, I just wanted to show you, this is method number 2, that instead of including the actual code in custom XSL, we're including it in the separate files which parallel the out-of-the-box structure, and we're then including those files in custom XSL, which is what you're looking at. Okay, excellent. Next, so now I'm going to switch back to PowerPoint. Okay, I'm going to start reading this because it's mostly just listening. Oh, there you go. You're going to see the next slide in a second. And we're going to talk about step 3. Step 3 is very parallel to step 2. In step 2, it was include the changed templates. Oh, now you can see it. And we talked about the 2 options at length. So these same 2 options apply for the attribute sets. Either you can do that second option, which is what we did yesterday, which is last time, which is to paste the whole changed attribute set directly into custom XSL. Or you can do what we're going to do tonight, which is to copy the attribute files to that directory and then only include the file names in custom XSL, which is exactly parallel to what we just showed, what I just demonstrated for templates. This is just talking about attribute sets. I have a note here that says pasting code directly into custom XSL is only prudent for small customizations. We generally recommend including changed files in custom XSL. for the reasons we discussed earlier. Step 4 is to change the entry in the catalog, which we did last time. I can show you again briefly if you'd like, but it's the same change, just uncommenting the lines that say we're making changes to templates, we're making changes to attribute sets. That step only needs to be done once for each customization directory. Okay. So now I'm going to switch back to the file system and show you what I just read. So in customization July 6, which is our customization directory, we have FO adders, which is where the attribute sets live. Okay. We have custom XSL, which is going to include these two changed attribute set files, commons adder custom and lists adder custom. Okay, and all the custom XSL file will have is those two include lines as we saw previously. Okay, and then to talk about the catalog file, so it's just like last time. I actually copied it when I made this. Okay, now I know it's going to take a little while for the screen to refresh, but basically you'll see on line 6 and 10, looks, I think you're still seeing the last file I showed you on this application. So let's wait for this file to show up. There we go. Can anyone not see this new file? Excellent. This is a nice feature here. So you can see that on line 6 I uncommented the line under custom attributes entry, and on line 10 I uncommented the line under custom XSL code entry. So just like last time, the step is the same. Okay. Finally, back to PowerPoint. There's a new step that we have to do this time that we did not have to do last time. Last time, since we used the default customization directory, we didn't have to put any special parameter into the project build file in Ant. However, this time, since we did create our own customization directory, we need to send the name of that customization directory as a parameter in my Ant build file. And this is how the toolkit knows, hey, show me all the customizations that are in customization July 6, or in my user guide, or in my pocket guide, or whatever it is that you're naming the customization directory. And I made a note that I mentioned last time, you can just simply pluck up, in our case, customization July 6, and send it to someone, or move it to a different machine, which is nice because it's all localized and transferable. Okay. So let me show you my project builds file while we're at it. Hold on. Samples. Build. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to wait for it to show up on your screen. I'll highlight it in the meantime. So this is a build. This is basically the same build file we used last time. I left in the part about keeping the retained topic FO and clean temp, because why not save the intermediate files? It's usually good for customization purposes, as we discussed. I know you can't see it yet, so I'm talking about other stuff first. And in addition, I added this new parameter which you're about to see. I think now you can see it. So you see the highlighted one, property name, customization. Wait, there's a comment. Maybe you can't see it yet. You see it? Great. Thank you. Customization.dir, which is the one that, what did I just do? Which is the one that is going to provide the name of the customization directory that we have customized. Okay, so that's down here. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to best see your screen as well. Okay. And as you see, the value here is customization July 6th. That was step 5. Excellent. So that concludes our review of how to customize the FO plugin, but it was more than just a review. It was showing a more sophisticated way of customizing the plugin. Okay. And I guess so as not to take up more time flipping back and forth, what I did was I copied we made 2 customizations last time. One in the P template, we added the word paragraph, and one in the P attribute set, we made it turn red. So what I did was I moved those customizations into their respective files. I put the P template into Commons custom.xsl, and I put the P attribute set into Commons adder custom.xsl to show you how to accomplish the same thing with this new slightly different method. But I'm going to wait to show that to you until we already open up the files for something else, so as not to spend more time on it. Okay, moving along to customization units. Well, before I move along, let me stop for if there are any questions or comments. Now's also a good time to tell me if there's still a lag problem. I'm assuming we fixed it, but I could be wrong. Okay, so let's move forward then. Okay, so one question we have about templates is how much of the template file should be retained? What I could have done is I could have copied the whole Commons XSL file, which is quite large, and made a change to the template I needed to change, but left the rest of it in there. That's not what we recommend. What we recommend is to save only those templates that are being changed. This way, and then my custom template replaces the out-of-the-box template, which it would in any case, but it has several advantages to this. One is that it makes the customs file smaller. Instead of needing to navigate and scan through a very large custom file, when I only changed maybe a couple of lines, I can see that, oh, these are the templates I changed, and I know exactly where my changes are located. The second advantage is that it allows for easier upgrading to subsequent plugin releases. Why? Because templates that I haven't touched will be automatically upgraded. And I'll only have to maintain the changes in templates I have changed. In other words, if I had copied the whole Commons, for example, into my customization directory, all of those templates would be overriding the templates in the out-of-the-box Commons. And since they would be all of them, even if I upgraded the toolkit, I would be overriding it with the old version. However, if I only retain those templates that I changed, then I still might need to upgrade and maintain and compare to see if I'm missing any improvements in the new version. But I'd only have to deal with it for those templates that I changed. I wouldn't have to worry about all of them. So it's much easier to upgrade and maintain the changes. Okay, next slide. Next question. And this happens all the time. I customize my template and the PDF renders, but I still don't see my change. Where did it go? It happens more when you're starting out with this, but it happens even after you've started out. So there are a number of things that might have happened, and it's a good idea to check all of them until you hit the right one. First of all, check that you remembered to include the changed file in custom XSL, and you updated the catalog file accordingly, right? You have to do all 5 steps or it's not going to work. So here I mentioned 2 of them. It could be there's another one that's missing, but the key is that we changed a 1-step process into a 2-step process. If we were only storing the changed code in custom, that's all we would need to check. Here I have to check, first of all, that I included the new file in custom, and second of all, that I actually made the change in the new file and that it's sitting in the right place. And of course, that I changed the catalog directory. Another reason I might not be able to see my change is to make sure that the file I changed is the one that's being used. What I meant by this is that in some cases there are multiple instances of the same file. For examples, we'll see later in the tables use case, there's a tables file and there's a tables 1.0 file. And I once spent a very long time banging my head against the wall because I was sure I made the right change in the tables file, and the end of the story was that it turned out it was in the right template, but it was the template in the wrong file. because the templates in tables 1.0 overrode the templates in tables, so that's why I couldn't see my change, and it took me forever to figure this out. So you always want to make sure that the file you're changing is the one that's actually being used. Especially with those 1.0 files, it can be tricky sometimes. Usually the 1.0 file overrides the one without a number in the name. Thirdly, you want to check which file we changed, and we want to make sure that it's being saved where I think it's being saved. As we pointed out last time, the FO plugin is extremely confusing because there are many directories with the same names and many files with the same names. That's an advantage, as I said earlier, of maybe appending the word custom to your changed file so you know that's the new one. Because otherwise you end up comparing files with the same name and in directories with the same name, and it's very easy to save it in the wrong place or to change the wrong file. And we recommend as best practice to develop a system for keeping track of which are the custom files and which are the originals. We want to make sure that the changes are always made in a copy of the file, not the original. So the out-of-the-box files should be used for comparison purposes and for copying, but not to make changes in. We always want to make our changes in the customization directory for the reasons we discussed before. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about attribute sets. So we're going to ask the same question we asked with regard to templates. How much of the original attribute file should be retained? Do we want to keep the whole attribute file or just one section of it? So here it's less clear than it was for templates. Whereas for templates we said yes, we want the whole template. Here I don't have a clear answer. There are advantages to doing it both ways. On the one hand, you have the same advantages as we had for templates. Smaller files, and you only need to maintain the changes as opposed to the whole large attribute set file. However, the reason it's less simple for attribute sets is the nature of attribute sets. Because attribute sets generally contain formatting information, and generally speaking, formatting is all interdependent. So one attribute set might only look right if another attribute set is also there. So we don't necessarily want our formatting changed when the plugin is upgraded. And additionally, as opposed to templates where you really might only change one or two, in my experience I found that you end up touching most attribute sets anyway because so many attributes are repeated in different places. So here, do what works well for you, for your scenario, with regard to whether you only copy the attributes that you changed or whether you copy the whole file. Okay? Another question, and we mentioned this last time, but it's an important point, so we're going to review it. What happens often is, let's say I might make a change in my attribute set, and then all of a sudden see formatting appearing in my document that I wasn't aware of putting there. Right? Where did all these attributes in my document come from? I don't remember defining them in my custom attribute set. So the answer is that the toolkit merges the standard attribute sets with the custom attribute sets. This means that any attribute that you do not replace will still appear in the final output, whether or not you want it. Okay, we talked about this last time. For templates, the customized template overrides the out-of-the-box templates, meaning it replaces it. For attribute sets, the attributes are merged. So if I don't override a given attribute, it will appear anyway from the out-of-the-box set. As a result, the best practice is that when you custom an attribute set, we want to copy the whole standard attribute set to the new file. This way, we will be aware of all of the attributes that will be included in the PDF. We can then go ahead and change the desired attributes. Okay. So, note, this can in theory become a problem again after the toolkit is upgraded, if the attribute sets are upgraded, right? I might think I covered everything. Now, I'm sure we're careful not to do this, but it's possible in theory that someone in an upgrade can add a new attribute, which would show up because of this, I don't know if it's a feature or a bug, but the way this works. So if you do upgrade the toolkit, we just want to be aware of formatting changes creeping into my document after an upgrade. If they do that, it might be because they were added with an upgrade. Okay, so now we come to the next question, which is, okay, you're telling me that it's merged. What if I really want to get rid of an attribute? How do I delete an attribute? So the simplest way to do this is, if it's possible, you can set the value of the attribute to 0 or to the default in the new attribute set. So for example, let's say there used to be line spacing or line height equals 5. I don't want there to be any line height. So what I can do is I can change the 5 to a 0, and now there's no line height. So the line height attribute will still exist in my attribute set, but since the value is 0, I won't see anything. So if that kind of thing is possible, that's definitely the easiest way to do this. If you really need to get rid of an attribute, but it's not possible to nullify it, you might have to create another workaround is that you might have to create a new attribute set with a different name that does not include the problematic attribute. And you can then reference the new attribute set from the templates. So it is a workaround, but this can work if you need to delete an attribute. There's no other way to do it. Okay. So that concludes our brief discussion of customization units. So far we talked about the 5-step process of how to customize the FO plugin, and we talked about some questions and answers regarding how much of an attribute set or template to preserve, where to store, how to get rid of an attribute, the fact that attributes are merged with each other, best practices for doing these customizations with templates and attribute sets, and also some steps, things we can check if for some reason we're not seeing the customization we made. What I'd like to do with the rest of our time is to dive into these case studies to give you, again, practical examples of how to apply all these kind of overview and theory that we've been discussing until now. Before I do that, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions or comments, and then we'll move forward. Okay, so if there are no questions or comments, we will proceed directly to the case studies. Okay, so this is our list in the next half an hour or so. Document body, tables, lists, related links, and rendering engine. No problem. Okay, so moving forward. Okay, case study number 1. The goal is that we'd like to customize the titles in the body of the document. Okay, it sounds pretty straightforward. Okay, now you can see my screen. That's good. So the first question of all these case studies is, well, where do I do it? So we did a brief overview last time, but we did it very quickly of which files exist in the plugin and what parts of the document they relate to. So I might think there might be some sort of file called body.xsl, but none such exists. So where is it stored? So what I wrote here is that when all else fails, reference commons XSL. Note the file size. It's larger than most of the other files. And the reason is it contains a lot of general, common formatting and template information. And in fact, in this case, that's where the information regarding the titles is stored. Now, if you didn't happen to know that, how do you figure this type of thing out? So the best practice for this is that we strongly recommend using a good searching program that can do quick text searching in subdirectories. I use TextPad, which is a free utility, which has a very powerful text search utility. You can grab Google, desktop, whatever. The idea is that it's often much quicker to do a direct search than untangle the web of files. So instead of thinking, well, what did she say, or let me remember what I did last time, sometimes you can just type in, title and see where it comes up, and that's the quickest way to locate the information. Okay, so now once I've located it, how do I customize the titles? So I've decided, or I found that the relevant files, wait for your screen to change. There we go, are commons XSL and commons adder.xsl. Okay, so now the question is, where in these files should they be changed? So this happened to me, which is why I put it in here. I saw the topic title attribute set, which sounds like it should be for a title. But when I searched, I couldn't find a used attribute sets reference anywhere. Where is topic title being used? If you remember from the P example from last time, and I'll show you this example anyway, the way the templates and attribute sets interact is that the template kind of catches the element in the data and processes it. And one of the processing things it does is it often calls use attribute sets and references a particular attribute set. I'll highlight that. and that attribute set would contain the formatting for the template, the element that the template's processing. So I was looking for topic, topic, title, and I couldn't find a reference anywhere. So for this particular attribute, whereas when I looked in Commons Adder.xsl, I saw that there were plenty of attribute sets, topic, title, topic, topic, title, topic, 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 title, etc. So the answer is that Commons XSL generates the topic, topic, etc. attribute sets in a template called create topic adder's name. The number of topics reflects the number of levels. So the exact details of how this happens isn't so crucial for us, but just in case you were looking for it, it's not there. There's no use attribute sets with these attribute set titles. What is important to take away from this is that if you want to change a title, these are the attribute sets that should be changed. Topic.title changes the top level title. Topic title changes the second level title. Topic title changes the third level title, etc. So the solution is to customize the topic title attribute sets in Commons Adder.xsl. So let me show you how we did that. Okay, so I'm going to pause for the screen to refresh in a second. And what I did was we were looking before at the adders directory, and I showed you that I had Commons Adder custom.xsl, which I told you was referenced in common.xsl. So let me just get all the screens ready, and then I'll give you the tour. One more screen. Okay. Let's see. Okay, now I'll wait for your screen. Okay. I think you're seeing what I'm seeing. So the screen I have open is a custom XSL file in the attributes directory. And I uncommented this first line, which says include the file Commons Adder custom, which is where I made this change. I just highlighted it. Okay. Now if I go to that file, Commons Adder custom, I actually have a couple of changes in here. The first change waiting for the refresh. I see what you mean about the lag here. Okay, when it does refresh, you're going to see three attribute sets. One is now, here we go. P, topic title, and topic title. So P is here for historical reasons, since I moved it in from our customization last time. Remember, we changed one attribute, this bottom one here. We made all the P's turn red. Okay, that's from yesterday, from last time. The second attribute set is called topic title. And here also I changed the color. I said make all the first level topics be orange. I know what I should have done. Okay, we're going to do this in a second. And the third attribute set here, I wrote a little note, is I changed the font size from whatever it was, something smaller, to 25 points. So I said make my top level topics be orange and make my second level topics be 25 points. You know what I'm going to do, and I think I'm just going to do it quickly so as not to delay, is for a second I'm going to comment again out this include in custom. I'm going to generate it without the customization directory. Well, with it all commented out. And I want to show you how it changes. Okay, so I'm going to ditto-ot 151. I'm starting the start command.batch, which is how we want to start the command window to keep our proper environment variables. I'm going to go to the directory where I stored my build file. Like I said, I'm just doing this quickly so that I can get you the output we want. And I'm going to tell it to build my builds file. And don't worry, I'm going to stop as soon as you can see something. I'm running it without any customizations here so that I can show you how it changes when we make the customization. Okay, now I'm going to wait until you can see the output. This is using the default hierarchy document. Okay, now you should be able to see in a second the garage task screen from which we probably all are familiar with from the sample output. You can see this is out of the box, Dida Open Toolkit style. Now, if I include that Commons adder file that I just showed you, I made all the other changes already. I changed the catalog file and the custom file and all that, and I rerun it. We should be able to see, we want to see three things. We want to see the color be red for paragraphs. We want to see the top level topics be orange. We want to see the second level topics be 25 points. And I forgot to mention I also got rid of the line under the second level topics in that attribute set. So now I'm going to refresh. This is the magic trick here. Here we go. We have an orange first level topic, we have red paragraph, and we have 25-point second level topics without underscores. Okay, so this is showing you we made three changes to three attribute sets, and it significantly impacted the document. For better or for worse is debatable, but it impacted the document. The reason that the word paragraph is not here is because I did not yet include the change to the template. It's still commented out. Okay, so that's a short example of customizing the document body. Again, we changed two templates, topic title and topic title. We made obvious formatting changes to those templates. I'm sorry, not the templates, the attribute sets. We included them based on all the steps in the first set of slides, and we demonstrated the results. Now we're going to move forward to tables. So we have a new case study, how to customize a table. So the goal here was to display borders around each cell of a table. Right? If you look at the output, I'll show you later, by default you have a border around the whole table and around the title section, but not around each cell. So many of our clients want us to make borders around all the cells. So it's pretty obvious to pick which files apply to this. We have tables 1.0 and tables adder. As I mentioned before, that 1.0 file can be tricky, so 1.0 overrides tables. And the suggestion that I had when I needed to do this the first time was, okay, I know the attribute set trick. Let's go to the attribute sets. Let's put in border attributes, and then it will work. So the problem that I encountered was that it's not so simple for tables. The reason it's not so simple is that Dida supports special table border definitions within the actual Dida files. These border definitions are colsep, which is a column separator. One indicates that you want one, and 0 is that you don't. Rowsep, same idea. And frame, which portion of a border should surround the elements. And the problem was, next slide, that when if I were to hard-code it, when I did try to hard-code it, that works as long as I always wanted this look. However, since I wanted the table of borders to vary based on the presence of the cal's table attributes, this rowsep, colsep, frame options, this solution wouldn't be effective because I was like steamrollering it. I was saying, always give me borders. But I didn't really always want borders. I wanted borders to be the default But if the client told me, put a 0 in the data for concept, then I wanted there not to be a border. So the ultimate change that I found for this use case is that I made the change ultimately in the tables 10 file, the XSL file, and not in the attribute set file. And after this whole long saga, which was a very long saga, it was a pretty simple change. I found a template called generate table entry border, and I added a little bit of code. I said, listen, instead of just checking the value of that concept attribute, let's do some processing. If the concept attribute is 0, so fine, keep it, don't show me the border. However, if it's not 0, meaning either that it's 1 or that it's not there at all, then make it 1 by default. Tell it, yes, I want the border, even if none was specified. And because all the rest of the processing already existed in the toolkit to give you the border when the concept attribute was 1, this was the only change I needed to make, and then it worked. So to demonstrate, actually, okay, I'm showing you the other custom XSL file for templates. I just uncommented and include, I'll wait till, there it is, to say include the tables 10 custom file that I made. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and open that tables 10 custom file from the XSL directory. That's this, and I'm going to show you what's in it. Okay, it's a long template, but there's only one template in this file, which is the one I just told you about, called generate table entry border. And my changes, I'll wait till it shows up. I know you can't see it yet. My changes are all in the first few lines, in the first screen really. I just circled it. I'll wait till you can see it, but I'll explain before you can see it. I basically said what I just told you. Make temporary variables that store the CalSep and ROSEP value. If the temporary values are not 0, then say, yes, we'd like a column separator, please. Yes, we'd like a row cell separator, please. Make it 1. I hope you can read the small print. However, if it is 0, then keep it 0. Okay. So now to show you how it works in the output. So if you scroll down in the sample output, there is there was no table actually, so I stuck one in for this purpose. Okay, you can see that there's, like I said, there are borders around the overall table, but there are no borders around each individual cell. But now that I uncommented this file, I'm going to rerun the build. There it goes. And I'm going to refresh my table. This is my favorite part, is pressing F5 for refresh here when it works. And lo and behold, you can see that the cells now have borders. See a question? What's the difference between tables XSL and tables 10 XSL? Excellent question. I think tables, there are a number of files, not just tables, that have the 10 there. Practically, the 10 file overrides the other file, which is why I had my banging my head against the wall experience. I think the history behind it is that the 10 files were used for later versions of Ditto, like Ditto 10 or later, and that the tables without the numbers were used for earlier versions of Ditto. Practically speaking, again, 10 overrides tables, which is why it was such a frustrating experience. The same template appeared in both, but the one that was used was the one in the 10 file. Okay. Good question. Any other questions? Great. Okay, moving along. Okay, so we did the document body and tables. Now we're going to talk a little bit about lists. So the goal here, this actually, if you remember, this one actually relates a little bit to an example we did in the XSL webinar. But there was an XPath example that related to lists that's going to be used in this use case. Maybe it'll remind you when you see it. If not, that's okay too. So I'll wait till you can see my screen here. It should say customizing lists on top. Here we go. So the goal was ensure that the first and last list items are not alone on a page. Kind of like widows and orphans for lists. This is a request we get not infrequently. So here the relevant files are pretty intuitive. They're called lists.xsl and listsadder.xsl for the template and attribute files. Not to be confused with links, which looks really similar, but it's a different file. Okay, how are we going to do this? This can be accomplished by using XPath within the attribute set. And this is a good place to note that yes, XSL can be used within an attribute set. However, it must be used within the attribute. It cannot be used to determine which attribute should be there. So for example, you can't say, put in a keep with next attribute if it's the first one, because that's illegal in XSL. What you can do, and what I did was, in the next screen, you can say, always have a keep with next attribute, and if I'm the first one, say I always want to keep with next. If I'm not the first one, then say I'll go on automatic, do auto. I'll wait for your screen to refresh so you can see what I mean. Okay, here's the code sample. I did it slightly different now, but it's the same idea. Okay, I said, if this is the XPath you saw last time. If there are 0 preceding siblings, that means I'm the first one in my list, then set keep with next to be always. If there aren't 0, and the example today I actually did otherwise, I thought it was a little bit better practice, but same idea, then make it auto, which means do the default, which is not keeping with next. Okay, now here I had to work really hard to give you the example because I had to make a list fall off the page. So let's see if it still does it. I played around with the source data for that to happen. Good. So it did happen. If you see my example, it says useful tools. So this was the hardest part. It was making it not the hardest part, one of them. See, useful tools include the following items. And see how hammer is the lonely by itself on page 5? And the reason it says useful tools 3 times is that's what I had to do to push it down to make 1 at the end of the page. Okay, so I wanted to fix this. I don't want hammer to be all by itself. I want hammer to be with screwdriver, set, etc. So again, how did I do this? I did pretty much what I showed you. Okay, so same ideas as we've been doing the whole time. Okay, in my custom adders file, I put in an XSL include for lists adder custom. I'll wait till you can see it. Okay, I think you can see it now, the second line there, right? First was comments adder, we already discussed. Second line is lists adder. And here's the actual file, list adder custom. Ignore the comment. There's exactly 1 attribute set in here. And my change was line 43 to 48. Which is pretty much like the code sample you saw before. I changed it a little bit for fun. Thought it was a little bit better. I know you can't see it yet, 1 sec. I put in, as you saw before, an XSL attribute called keep with next, which is what keeps things together in XSLFO. Here it is. Now it's going to scroll down. And I put in a choose. I said, again, if I'm the first one, always keep me with next. And if I'm not, then do the automatic thing. Okay, there you go. Line 43 to 48. Right? Attribute name equals keep with next. Choose. If there are no preceding siblings, meaning I'm the first, always keeping with next. Otherwise, make it automatic. Okay, so now for our example, I'm going to rerun the build again. In a second, you should be able to see my hammer sitting by itself. And then I'm going to refresh, and hopefully the hammer will join its siblings on page 6. Okay, let's refresh here. Everyone sees hammer? Okay, so now hammer has united with screwdriver set and wrench set. Okay. So that is our use case for lists. I didn't do keep with previous, but it's the same idea backwards, right? Instead of counting that you have no preceding siblings, which just tells you that you're first, you would count that you have no following siblings, which would tell you that you're last. And instead of doing keep with next equals always, you do keep with previous equals always. Same idea. Okay, so we did case studies for document body, tables, and lists. Now we're going to have 2 more left, related links and rendering engine. And that will conclude our session for today. Bear with me here. I'm going to go over a few minutes, but hopefully not too much. Okay, so my next goal was to customize related links by displaying related links after each topic in the PDF. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky. You would think that the relevant files are links.xsl and links.adder.xsl, which is true in the sense that that controls the display of the links, but there's actually an easier way to control whether or not it's displayed because there are parameters that do that, which I'm going to show you in a second. Meaning we're not going to actually change the file. In this case, we're going to change a parameter in our build file, which will go ahead and change the file. So the question was, I can render the document, but I don't see any related links. I thought this was a built-in function. The answer is this is a built-in function, and links are displayed by default, but only for online documents. To get the links to appear in the PDF, you can send a parameter in your build file called disable related links equals no. This should work in all versions of the toolkit. Okay, so that's the first thing. We're not done yet, but we're going to pause for a second. If I go to my build file, I have here a property that I'm going to uncomment called disable related links, value equals no. Over here. And in fact, when I rerun I think web developer is especially slow. Maybe I should use a different text editing program. Okay, so see disable related links, value equals no. So now when I go ahead and I rerun my builds file, and you see my whatever topics, okay, you should be able to see oil, not yet. Okay, now you should be able to see oil, paint, shelving, etc. So now when I hit F5, you can see there's a related links section. Here's a garage concepts, and then there's related links, and you have all these links. Or under that picture, there are a bunch of links. That's probably what you can see right now. What's the difference between, oh good, so that Steve, you guessed my next sentence. The main difference between disable related links and the other attribute, which is something, which is args fo include rel links, is just history. Disable related links was the historical parameter that let you see the related links, but it was a little bit backwards because you had to say disable related links equals no, which was extremely confusing, unnecessarily confusing. So what we did was, I didn't do it, but what was done was they added a new parameter in the recent versions of the toolkit which is a little more intuitive and also gives you more control. Okay, it's on this screen now. It should be on the screen in a minute. Customizing related links, slide 2, there you go. Okay, so there's a new parameter in the toolkit, perfect segue, thank you, which controls the display of links called args fo include relinks. Okay, a little bit more intuitive. And there are 3 values that can be provided. I got this from a comment in Basic Settings XSL. Either you can write none, which means that no links are included. This is the default to match previous settings. You can write all links are included. And that's a default if disable related links is equal to no, like we just did. Or there's a new value called no family. And what no family does is it excludes links with role equals parent, child, next, previous, ancestor, descendant, sibling, cousin. So to answer Steve's question, disable related links equals no is the same as include rel links equals all. But include rel links can also be set to no family, which will give you only related links in rel table, but not these automatic links from family roles. And this is a brand new feature that I think isn't so well known yet, so but looks like it's really useful. So when we go back to my build file, you'll see that's the next line there. I'm not going to demonstrate it to save time, but it works. Okay. Finally, we're going to have a quick slide about changing the rendering engine. Now the goal is to, I forgot to write goal there, to configure the FO, a different format. To configure the FO plugin to use Antenna House or RenderX, all you have to do now is set the PDF formatter parameter in the project build file. Okay, so it's really easy now. There are 3 values. FOP is the default, that uses FOP. Antenna House is AH, and RenderX is XEP. So all you have to do is change that parameter, the value, and it will automatically use a different rendering engine. Note, it is much more complicated to do this using previous versions of the toolkit. We recommend upgrading to the latest version of the toolkit to take advantage of this feature and other improvements. It's possible to do this in earlier versions of the toolkit, and many of us have done it already, but it's pretty painful. Now it's really not painful. So if you look at my build file, so first of all, here is, wait till you can see it. Okay, args fo include related links. I put value equals no family for fun. But we're going to not run it right now with that. What we are going to look at is property name equals PDF formatter, value equals AH for Antenna House. That's this last one here. How can I tell which version of the toolkit I have installed with Oxygen? That's a general question. If you know where your toolkit is installed, there's usually a release notes file in the DITA-OT directory. So if you go, for example, I have DITA-OT, I got it 151. What I can also do is I can go scroll down in there. There's relnotes.txt, and relnotes usually on the top says which release it is. So that's the easiest way to check. Good question. Okay, I don't know if this feature was in 1.5 or 1.51. It's a recent feature though. Okay, so I can set now to Antenna House. If you remember from my last build here, you can see there are messages from FOP, which is one of the ways you can tell from the command window that it was using FOP by default. I'll wait for you to see it. See down here it says FOP severe. Okay, we're not going to focus on the error, but I do want you to see that it's coming from FOP. Okay, now if I rerun it, it's going to do the whole thing again. And at the end, we're going to see messages from XSL command, which is the executable for Antenna House. We'll also see that it calls other targets it didn't call last time for Antenna House, like fo2pdf.ah. So that means that it's using Antenna House. No problem. I'm glad it worked. So that's it. Meaning, I don't know if there'll be any differences in the particular examples we were doing, but there are often differences. Sometimes, especially, you'll get errors with FOP that you would not get with Antenna House or RenderX. So and also sometimes people don't even realize. So if you want to be using RenderX or Antenna House, make sure that the PDF formatter parameter is set to AH or XCP. Okay. So that concludes our discussion of case studies and just about concludes our webinar. We talked about 5 different examples. We talked about how to customize titles in the document body by changing topic.title and topic.title attribute sets in Commons Adder. We talked about adding borders to tables by default, which ultimately meant changing a template in the tables 1.0 file that said by default set colsep and rosep to 1. We talked about lists, how to make a list item not be a widow or an orphan, which involved inserting XSL code in a list attribute set to check if it was first or last and applying a keep with next or keep with previous. We talked about links, how to display related links, and we talked about an old attribute that exists called disable related links, which had to be set to no, and a new attribute, which I forget, which you could say either all or none or no family to only display related links and rel tables and not family related links. That was done by a parameter in the ant build file and not by actual code changes. And finally, we talked again about another parameter in the ant build file, which allows us to change the rendering engine that's used by simply changing the value of pdf.formatter. And these were all practical examples for how to customize the FO plugin in a more sophisticated way by having a separate customization directory and by including customized files in custom XSL instead of making all the changes their directory. And we applied some of the best practices I had discussed by only including the changed templates and changed attribute sets in those files instead of copying over the whole file. It would have been a lot harder for me to demonstrate all these changes if I had to search through a huge file which contained many lines of code that I did not change. So that concludes our discussion for today. I'll be happy to stop for questions or comments, and I'll see many of you again tomorrow in our next webinar. Okay, I see a question. How can I specify a different build file with Oxygen? Meaning you're running it directly from Oxygen, John? Bye, have a good night. That was for someone else? Yes. So you want to change the PDF parameter? Yes. Okay. So you have to find out how Oxygen interfaces with the toolkit. I don't know the answer to that offhand. I could check if someone on my team has a quick answer for that if you'd like. It needs to use some kind of build file, but you have to know where it is. Okay, so I'll try to get back to you about that, John. No problem. Any other questions or comments? Steve, one sec. Glitch. If you use no family, it breaks rel table cells that have 2 topic refs enclosed in topic group with collection type family. The topic refs don't link to each other because family is overridden. That's interesting. Thanks for pointing that out. I wasn't aware of that glitch, but it's definitely useful to know. I know in the past I've experienced a different glitch. I wasn't sure if it still happens, so I didn't include it this time. But I had cases where if you have, let's say, a link in a rel table, and the same link as a family, like as a child or a parent, it sometimes displayed it twice. Once because of the rel table and once because of the family. In the past, I've had to write XPath to weed them out. I don't know if that's a different glitch or not, but it's interesting that this isn't perfected either. I'll try to pass that along in case someone can do something about it. Did you report it already on SourceForge? Okay, he's good too. Reported it to Robert. Any other questions or comments at this point? Okay, so if there are no further questions or comments, I'd like to thank you all for participating and joining me today, this evening, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.